You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today, Holly Miner from the Kansas State Extension Service stops by to give us some help with our Thanksgiving turkey.
While the sun is beginning to rise, the temperatures, they are beginning to fall. The latest on our cold front from the Skywatch Weather Center.
First, if you travel across the K7 crossing between US 400 and K103, plan to take a detour. All that and more coming up.
The four states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. The South Kansas and Oklahoma, or SKOL Railroad, will be closing and repairing one of its railroads. It's located on the K7 crossing between US 400 and K103. They're closing it today. The closure is expected to be day-long, beginning at 8 a.m. and continuing all the way until 5 o'clock this afternoon. Traffic will follow a signed detour on K103, US 69, and US 400 as seen there on your screen. For more information on this closure, you can go to our website and find a link to candrive.org. MoDOT says a project that would build a bridge over a Joplin train track is high on its priority list. MoDOT's working on plans after the passage of the federal infrastructure bill and Missouri's gas tax increase. MoDOT says the proposed overpass at 32nd Street near Hammonds Boulevard is a Tier 1 project. It's in the early planning stages, but its Tier 1 status means it would be among the first new projects MoDOT would build. KCU Joplin is making sure students who are new to the area know what to expect when the cold winter weather moves in. The school hosted an event featuring stations focusing on a different aspect of Midwest winters. KOAM meteorologist Nick Kelly was there with some expert advice. Other topics covered were what to wear when exercising in the cold, mental health, taking care of pets, and safe winter driving.
Honestly, I think it's really amazing that KCU is doing something like this because a lot of the students who are, like I said, not from California, or sorry, not from Missouri, wouldn't know exactly what to do. And so it really is helpful to have people who are from here, who have the experience, to really be able to help us out and give us all the resources that we need.
There were 6 information stations at the event. Well, it's Kids Helping Kids in Southwest Missouri. Little Rascals Clubhouse, Webb City Daycare, on Tuesday donated more than $1,200 to the Ronald McDonald House. The money was raised by the clubhouse as a way to teach kids about kindness.
Little Rascals Clubhouse from Webb City brought us a donation today of over $1,000 that they collected from their families, and they did a match with that also for World Kindness Day. And that donation will go a long way in providing the comfort and care that Ronald McDonald House provides.
Ronald McDonald House of the 4 states provides a home away from home for the families of seriously ill children who are staying in the local Mercy or Freeman hospitals. It's official. Duquesne, Missouri is getting its own city park. Duquesne officials celebrated the first steps yesterday with a groundbreaking ceremony for the park's walking trail.
We have a flexible plan, we feel like. We want to make it family friendly by incorporating some playground equipment as well as picnic tables and those kind of things. But it'll just be done in stages.
The new park and trail is partly financed by a grant with help from Algier Martin and the Harry S. Truman Council. Are you ready for this? Today is National Homemade Bread Day, and there are loads of ways you can celebrate. Shall I go on? As long as you're ready to rise to the challenge, there's really no better bread than the kind you make at home. I'm gonna stop now. Make it for your family, and it's the yeast you can do. Okay, no, I can't stop. Make it for your friends if they need a pick-me-up. Heck, make it for yourself if you're feeling a little crumby. Okay, seriously, I'm gonna stop. You can eat it a slice at a time, make it into a sandwich, or even put it on a salad. It's delicious any way you choose to chow down. Crust us. Okay, seriously, that's the last of the puns.
You lack complete I love you. You lack complete self-control when it comes to puns.
I do.
That's why I knew you were joking when you were like, okay, I won't do it anymore. Okay, this will be the last one. Okay, this will be the last. I'm like, no. You love puns.
I do. In case you are wondering, National Homemade Bread Day has been around since the 1980s. The National Homemade Bread Committee from Ann Arbor, Michigan created it as a way to encourage family time.
We think about all these national days that we've had in August. I'm really surprised that it only dates back to the 80s. I would have thought much longer than that.
I know, because we've been making homemade bread a long time.
What's the best thing since sliced bread? You never use that saying?
It's the best, no.
Like if something's really great and convenient, this weather computer, best thing since sliced bread. Never heard that? That's
seen
an old man saying, isn't it?
Best thing since, but not slice of bread.
Sliced bread, yeah, that's the best thing since sliced bread.
I think you just pick whichever thing you really like at the time, and you must really like sliced bread.
Number one, I do, but number two, no. That's how the saying goes that I was raised upon. That's the best thing since sliced bread. Control room, am I out of my mind? I am out of my mind?
Yeah.
Or you know it. You know the saying. Okay. I mean,
You're getting no response.
It can be both, folks. I can be out of my mind, and also, too, they may know the old
Okay,
man
so
saying.
I've seen the best. Okay, I'm going to get back to you on this.
Okay, I'll do the weather. And now, go ahead. And now, the weather. We bring you the weather. Cold front moving in, although it is a gorgeous start. That's a live look outside of Television City. Top left-hand side of your screen. Gate Center now dropping down to 48 degrees. Everybody was at least in the mid-50s when we started the KOAM morning news. Now we're watching everything go down. Our high temps for the day, we've already hit that. We hit that around midnight. And so now we see us digress from the 60s down to the south. That will drop into the 50s by the noon hour. And then everybody up in the northwest, you're going to drop down to the 40s there before we stabilize. Wind arrows give you an idea exactly where we're headed and where the front is as it now sits just on the opposite side of Chanute. Wind has shifted in from the north, also to Independence in the midst of it. So up next will be that about the Parsons. If you take a line, go from say Parsons to Nevada is what we'll be looking at. Future track is going to bring us just some light scattered showers for this afternoon. Nothing severe, nothing to write home about. But then overnight, look at these temperatures falling down around the freezing mark, not only for Wednesday night, but also Thursday night as well.
All right.
In other words,
Michael, I'm going to issue an apology here.
What?
I just
You don't
Googled
need an
it, and
apology.
apparently is the thing. The best thing since
Sliced bread.
sliced bread.
Well, no, because what I was going to say is, because I turned to the wrong camera. What I was going to say is when I look at the overnight lows from Wednesday into Thursday and Thursday into Friday, dropping down by that freezing mark, it dawns on me that my Carhartts, best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah. As are your long underwear and all of that stuff,
I've already
too.
got them on.
Yeah. Ironically, their example says these waterproof jeans are the best thing since sliced bread. I don't have to worry about getting soaked. That's great. And I will add that to my old man saying list. Check it off. Up next, the latest on COVID.
By the end of this week, we could see more progress in the battle to end the coronavirus. I'm Laura Podesta with why extra protection from COVID appears to be on the way.
And later, a man who died in a plane crash likely saved the life of his 11-year-old daughter in the process. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. About a third of Americans 65 and older have gotten a booster shot for COVID-19. By Friday, all adults could be eligible for the extra shot. The extra protection could be key to clamping down on rising case numbers as we head into the holiday season. CBS's Laura Podesta explains.
Pfizer's COVID-19 booster may be available for all adults by the end of the week. The FDA could authorize it as soon as tomorrow, and the CDC may sign off on Friday.
When we look back on this, we will see that boosters are likely a very critical part of the immunization regimen.
Several states have already approved the extra dose.
We've collected new data now showing the importance of third immunization, and the states are able to be a little bit more nimble and move faster.
A new poll from Monmouth University found 68% of Americans plan to spend Thanksgiving with at least the same amount of people as they did before the pandemic. That's up from 46% last year.
I want to celebrate Thanksgiving safely.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul urged unvaccinated Americans to act ahead of the holidays.
A lot of it's concentrated in our rural areas. We're very aware of that. There is a direct correlation between people being vaccinated and the infection rate.
On Monday, the CDC reported more than 150,000 new infections for the first time in 2 months.
If you get sick, really sick, how is that going to affect the rest of your family?
Janine Thalen spent a month on a ventilator early in the pandemic. She doesn't want to see anyone else go through that.
I wish people wouldn't listen to social media and would get some real facts.
58% of all Americans are fully vaccinated. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
The Monmouth University poll found 64% of people hosting Thanksgiving will not ask about vaccination status. In Europe, meanwhile, cases have surged more than 50% in the last month. World Health Organization is warning Americans to watch what's happening there and learn from it. Let it serve as a warning to the U.S. on how quickly cases could tick back up during the winter months. Well, hey, you, take a hike. No, really, get out there and hit the trails. Today is also National Take a Hike Day. That's right. There are more than 60,000 trails in the U.S. National Trail System. Some of them are almost 200 years old. Make sure you track the footsteps of explorers like Lewis and Clark. These footpaths can take you to cascading waterfalls, mountain summits, rock formations, dense forest, and every landscape imaginable. There are even more trails when you consider those in local and state parks. You're probably within a 10-minute drive to many of them. Hiking is a great exercise that can burn up to 550 calories per hour. Now is also the perfect time to get out there and explore, as long as you visit a trail that isn't extremely crowded. It's probably safe to hike mask-free.
Interestingly enough, we go from one idiom to another. Take a hike.
Take a hike. Take a hike, Jack.
Beautiful morning outside of Television City as the glow cloud is now over the horizon. However, it is not going to warm us up at all. The cold front's going to result in temperatures that are already dropping. At 7th and Rangeline, we still have the wind coming in from the south, but that is drastically changing as we see the flip in temperatures now. Take that Independence to Iola line where we've seen 3-4 degree drop. Up next will be that Parsons to Nevada line. So Fort Scott, you'll be a part of that as well, and it's very indicative when we look at where our wind arrows shift, almost fall like dominoes up there. 17 miles per hour from the north in Chanute compared to 12 miles from the south in Joplin. Little rain beginning to formulate far northern counties. Anything that we do to see today is just simply going to be some light November showers, and it'll follow right along the jet stream that cuts the 4 states just about in half and is bookended by those low pressure L's that we see on our screen. Afternoon planner, we've already topped out temperature wise. We'll drop down to the 50s by the noon hour. Cloud cover goes away overnight. Temperatures continue to fall down to the freezing point for both Wednesday and Thursday. Be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
Welcome back. Thanksgiving is next week, and if you haven't thought about cooking your turkey, now is the time to do it. Holly Miner is joining us from the Kansas State Extension Service with our special Wildcat Wednesday segment, and today we are focusing on talking turkeys. Thank you for joining us this morning, Holly.
Thank you for having me.
Now, a big part of making your turkey is doing it safely, and I know that's a lot of what you wanted to focus on today, correct?
Yes, we want to make sure that our bird is prepared in a way that keeps our family and friends from becoming ill. We want to enjoy that time together. So one of the things that we need to think about is how we are preparing that bird and when to start preparing that bird. Most turkeys are purchased either fresh or frozen. And if you have a frozen bird, we want to make sure that we are allowing enough time for that turkey to thaw out completely. So if you have a 10 to 16 pound turkey, you are going to allow 3 to 4 days for that bird to thaw. If you have a 16 to 20 pound turkey, it's going to take 4 to 5 days. And if you have a 20 to 24 pound turkey, it's going to take 5 to 6 days for that bird to thaw. So Thanksgiving is on Thursday. You want to put that turkey in the oven, prepare it the night before, and have it ready to go in the oven in the morning. So you're going to have to think, okay, Wednesday back to Sunday, that's 3 days.
Yeah.
So
and if you're buying a frozen turkey, you don't want it to be too big if you've waited too long, for sure.
Exactly. We want to allow it enough time. So if you don't allow it enough time, say that you're giving that bird a little bit later and you don't have enough time to let it thaw in the refrigerator, which is where we thaw our turkey at, is in the refrigerator. Another method that we can use to thaw our turkey is to run it under cold running water. So we can put it in our sink, leave the plastic wrap on, and run cold water on that turkey.
Can you explain to us why you want to use cold water instead of warm or hot water when you're thawing your turkey?
Sure. So the outside of the turkey is going to thaw faster, obviously, because the room temperature air, and if you're using hot water, it's going to get hot. And anything over 41 degrees, that bird is going to grow bacteria. So if we have the outside of that turkey hot and the inside cold and we're trying to thaw it, it's going to have bacteria growth, and there's a potential for increased illness risk with that. So we want to use cold water to thaw our bird, keep it cold, and we're still thawing it out, but it's a little bit faster than just leaving it in the refrigerator.
All right. Well, that's a very good point, Holly. Okay, so once you have your turkey thawed out, is it recommended to wash it before you bake it?
No, we don't need to wash our turkey or any meat when we are preparing it. The best way to prepare it is to go ahead and get it ready. Put it in your oven bag. If you're using an oven bag, set it in your roaster, have everything ready, put it back in the refrigerator the night before, and then put it in your roasting pan or put it in your oven the next morning. And the baking process or the cooking process will kill that bacteria or anything that might be on that bird.
All right. A lot of people like to cook their stuffing inside their turkey. Is there a safe way to do that, or is that something you should avoid?
It is really recommended that you cook your stuffing in a separate casserole dish, and that way you can check the temperature to make sure it's cooked to the correct internal temperature. Inside the turkey, it's not as easy to do that, and there's more of a risk for the stuffing not being completely cooked as thoroughly as it should be.
Okay, so obviously we've covered a lot of information this morning, Holly. Is there a place that we can go to find more resources, or if we have questions the day we're actually cooking the turkey?
Yes, so there is a website from the USDA, and it is called Ask Nancy, and Nancy has all of your answers to all of your turkey questions. And the Kansas State Research and Extension also has a website, the Rapid Response Center, that is available with information on cooking your turkey and different methods of using to cook your turkey.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope your turkey turns out well. I hope my turkey turns out well, and that everyone has a wonderful holiday next week.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back. It's time to honor today's four-state hero, Willard Gage, Jr., who served in the U.S. Navy from 1963 to 1968. A native of Fort Scott, Kansas, Gage was stationed in Vietnam and in Cuba. We are proud to thank Willard Gage, our four-state hero. Michigan man who was killed in a plane crash is being remembered as a hero. First responders say Mike Perdue likely saved his 11-year-old daughter's life as the plane went down. As Ireland Viscount reports, the girl was the only survivor.
Mike Perdue was a husband, father, and friend. He was a well-known real estate broker and co-owner of Smith Realty. His longtime friend, Ryan Wojan, says Mike saved his daughter's life.
The one thing that Lainey remembers from the crash is that her dad was squeezing her so tight. And first responders, that were there also confirmed that he saved her life, and her doctors are also telling her that her injuries are relative to the opposite side of where he was sitting with her on the plane. So he was a hero to so many, to me, to his family, his extended family, but he died a hero as well.
According to Wojan, Lainey has multiple fractures and has had 2 surgeries, but is expected to recover. Dale Smith has known Mike for 13 years. Friends say his family and his faith was his life.
He was so thrilled to have twin boys because he had the 2 girls prior to that. And he said, I can't wait to start coaching those guys. And it was a very special moment.
His passions were, he had many, but family and his faith were definitely of the utmost importance to him. He's taken his girls out hunting and fishing, but there's a special bond between a dad and his sons, and he was very much looking forward to getting his kids involved with hunting and fishing, and I feel a great weight to be a part of that for them going forward.
Smith says Beaver Island was Mike's second home.
If he had a choice of where he would go, he'd like to go at Beaver Island. So in a sense, that was self-fulfilling as far as a pledge to himself.
Mike leaves behind a wife, 2 daughters, and twin boys. A GoFundMe page has been set up for the Perdue family. We'll be back with more news right after this.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:30. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Now, this is Daisy. She's a mannequin covered in beads, but the beads are not just for decoration. They're marked with the names of female cancer survivors and victims. Since 2004, Daisy has been moved around the area for more people to add beads. On Tuesday, the Eclectic Soul Studio in Pittsburgh hosted Daisy. Organizers say she serves as a memorial and symbol of courage in the face of these deadly diseases.
Actually, because we've had a lot of artists show up to add names, and of course artists are very happy to see a project like this and be able to contribute to that. So there was a little emotion, but I have to say it was mostly mine.
The studio will host another event to decorate Daisy on December 4th as part of the holiday art crawl. Once Daisy is fully covered in beads, she will be auctioned off. Well, you're looking at the new home for hundreds of Missouri Southern Lions. The university yesterday held an open house for the new Lion Village. It's a 4-story, 94,000 square foot complex that houses more than 300 students in a combination of 4-bedroom suites, traditional 2-bedroom units, and private rooms.
Kind of like my typical go-to statement is one thing we focused on with the building was having community spaces. Something our older buildings don't have is a lot of space for students to either study or just conjugate and get together with friends. This building, if you look at all 4 floors, have a kind of similar layout where you have common areas on each end.
It's residents with some entertainment options, including a 12-seat movie theater. It's official. Duquesne, Missouri is getting its own city park. Duquesne officials celebrated the first steps yesterday with a groundbreaking ceremony for the park's walking trail.
You have a flexible plan, we feel like. We want to make it family friendly by incorporating some playground equipment as well as picnic tables and those kind of things. But it'll just be done in stages.
The new park and trail is partly financed by a grant with help from the Algier Martin and the Harry S. Truman Council. Well, this is Fox 14's 18th annual Feed the 4 States food drive, and we're collecting non-perishable food items at Wesco home furnishing stores in Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma. Also, Phelan Dermatology and Tropical Tan in Joplin. Donations will help stock the shelves of area food pantries like Crosslines and the Wesley House during the season of high demand. You can also give online at koamnewsnow.com/feed. The food drive will continue until December 31st. Monetary donations can be stretched to provide 4 meals per $1. Hey, that's great. So please give what you can, and we thank you. Well, Thanksgiving tradition is still going strong for 2 former strangers who met in 2016 after an accidental dinner invitation. Wanda Dench thought she was sending a text with a dinner invite to her grandson, but it turns out he'd changed his number. Jamel Hinton got the message instead. The two figured out the mistake and then sent selfies to each other. That's when Hinton asked if he could still come over to her home in Mesa, Arizona. And Dench replied saying, "Of course you can. That's what grandmas do. Feed everyone." That started the holiday tradition, which is now in its 6th year. I remember running that story.
I know, yeah, that's the crazy part.
Yeah.
I remember the original story. That's so great that they've been keeping that tradition going.
Because that's what grandmas do. Awesome.
That is what grandmas do.
Just
Shout out to all
accidentally
you
went to the
grandmas
wrong
out
person,
there
that's
who
for sure. That's so great.
feed me and my family. You know who I'm talking about. So when you were doing your interview with Holly Miner, I ran out to the truck.
Got a blanket.
Right?
That's
you're
not
like,
just
you're
any
like,
blanket.
oh, Michael's got a blanket. Or,
Oh my goodness.
check this out. It's a full-size sweatshirt
Yeah, it's got to flip the hood back over. so
with
you
a
can see.
hood.
Yes.
You know why
It's
I brought
a blanket
this?
hoodie.
You know why? But here's the thing. It goes down to my knees. I'm 6 foot tall, folks. You're just about, I mean, you're right there with me.
That's amazing.
So this thing, and not only that, you're going to need it. Look, I'm prepared. You got Boy Scout background.
And I'm always cold, so.
I was waiting for you to drop a winter's coming line.
Oh, I missed it. I missed my cue. Now if I do it, it's just forced.
Well, no, when I walked outside, I'm like, ooh, it's here. Yeah, it's here. I can feel it. I can feel it outside. 7th range line has dropped 4 degrees since we started the KOAM morning news. Now, despite the fact that the wind still is coming in from the south, it is not going to be able to overcome the cold front that has now dropped the northwestern portion of our counties in southeast Kansas down to the 50 point. Earlier, we even had some 40s. We got 48 right now in Sedan. Our next line is going to be that Independence Parsons Fort Scott diagonal. Fort Scott's still at 63, but we're watching everything drop down as the wind shifts and got that definitive northerly roll to it and give you an idea of when it does. Now, it's not one of those where we're going to drop 30 degrees in half an hour. You know, we get those during the winter and whatnot. This is not one of those. It's kind of going to be a slow and steady one. Picking up a little precipitation right along the dividing line, especially in our northern portion. We're not going to have anything severe, and our accumulation numbers fairly limited, about 1/4 to half an inch of rain as it rolls through. The big thing is what happens overnight, because the cloud cover goes away with the front, and what that allows everything to do is settle down around the freezing point for back-to-back nights. Our daytime highs for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, not too bad with plenty of sunshine. Just watch out for those overnight lows. We'll be back with more KOAM morning news on Fox 14 right after this. This morning on the KOAM News Now Facebook page in our morning Insta poll, we're discussing death row. Julius Jones is awaiting his fate on Oklahoma's death row, with supporters staging protests outside of Governor Kevin Stitt's office. Oklahoma's Pardon and Parole Board has recommended Governor Stitt commute Jones's sentence to life in prison. He's scheduled to be executed tomorrow. Our question for you is, how do you feel about the death penalty? 72% of you say that you support it. Great engagement this morning. Appreciate everybody who's chimed in. Connect to us via Facebook or go straight to the poll, koamnewsnow.com/vote. Now, if you're troubled by strange noises in the middle of the night or those feelings of dread in your basement or attic, you know what to do. Call the Ghostbusters. Rick Damigella, he's got to look at the history of Ghostbusters.
There hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years. New York in the 80s, it's like The Walking Dead.
37 years after the original movie phenomenon took the world by storm, the Ghostbusters are headed back to theaters. But how did these paranormal investigators and eliminators get to this point? Ghostbusters. Hey, anybody see a ghost? 1984 was a big year for movies, which included the summer release of Ghostbusters. The supernatural comedy went on to become the top-grossing film of the year.
All right, suck in the guts, guys. We're the Ghostbusters.
1989 saw the release of Ghostbusters 2. The sequel didn't do quite as well as the original, making less than half what its predecessor did. Sony attempted a franchise reboot in 2016. That Ghostbusters cost a reported $144 million and only grossed $128 million at the North American box office, according to IMDb.
My grandfather died. My mom says we're just here to pick through the rubble of his life.
5 years later, Ghostbusters Afterlife, directed by original Ghostbusters director Ivan Reitman's son Jason Reitman, heads to theaters following multiple release delays due to the pandemic. Afraid of no ghosts in Hollywood, I'm Rick Damigella.
It won't be bad. Paul Rudd's in it. As long as I get my line, dogs, cats living together, mass hysteria. Ghostbusters Afterlife begins haunting movie theaters on Friday. Be back right after this.
Well, millions of TikTok users may be entitled to money from a class action lawsuit. The suit says the platform collected children's personal information like location, phone numbers, and biometric data without sufficient notification or consent. If the settlement is approved, the total payout is expected to be $92 million to be split among affected parties. Amazon has agreed to pay $500,000 for failing to notify its California employees about new COVID cases. The company also agreed to improve the way it tracks cases and alerts workers and local health officials. California's Attorney General said the action comes after Amazon failed to adequately notify its workers, often leaving them unable to effectively track the spread of the virus. Well, singer Harry Styles, known for his gender-fluid wardrobe and love of nail polish, has launched his own gender-neutral beauty brand. It's called Pleasing. True to the star's gender-neutral approach to fashion and beauty, the campaign models include men and women. The vegan and cruelty-free beauty brand currently has 6 products, 4 nail polishes, a dual roller ball, lip and eye serum, and a facial serum. Prices range from $20 to $75. The newly launched website for the line says it's available for pre-order online and will ship at the end of November. Styles told a magazine he worked on the line during the pandemic, and there are more products to come. KFC wants its customers to ditch the drive-thru. The chicken chain is providing an alternative that it believes may be more efficient. It's called Quick Pickup, and it works like this. You order ahead on the KFC app or website, drive to the location, and park in a dedicated spot. Then you just stroll in and snag your food off a shelf by the register. The idea is to reduce long lines that slow down service at the drive-thrus or inside the stores due to the pandemic. The company has cited a survey showing the speed of KFC drive-thrus slowed down by about a half a minute in 2021. Quick Pickup is available in most of KFC's roughly 4,000 locations. To encourage people to use the option, the chain is offering free large fries with a $5 purchase if they're picked up at a Quick Pickup. Make sure you check and make sure it's a participating location. We'll be right back with more after this, but first let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell.
For worry-free, President Biden says progress was made with Taiwan during his virtual meeting with China's President Xi Jinping. The two leaders spent a good part of the summit discussing Taiwan, which has been a source of recent tension amid Chinese military aggression. President Biden said Taiwan, quote, makes its own decisions, and later clarified a comment when it came to its independence. Now, these rise in tensions between Taiwan and China, these come as concerns grow over intensifying arms races all across Asia. Will Ripley has the details. He's in Taipei.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping meeting virtually this week as the world faces what analysts call a growing threat. An intensifying arms race across the Indo-Pacific, potential flashpoints across the region, raising the risk of a nuclear conflict, threatening the U.S., its allies, and the world.
If you have a serious conflict, you could end up with the nuclear weapons being used. And we're not talking atomic bombs, we're talking hydrogen bombs, and this is a different level of warfare entirely.
The world's most assertive nuclear power, China. New satellite images suggest Beijing is building nuclear-capable missile silos, testing more ballistic missiles than the rest of the world combined, the Pentagon says, including what the U.S. calls a potentially game-changing hypersonic weapon, a claim China denies. The Chinese Navy, now the largest in the world, with a catch. Most of their warships are small, but they are getting bigger. A new aircraft carrier in Shanghai could launch early next year, with technology rivaling the larger, more advanced U.S. carrier fleet.
How long is it going to take for China's Navy to pose this credible threat to America's Navy?
I think they still need a lot of time.
Are we talking years? Are we talking decades?
Oh, yeah. 20 to 30.
20 to 30
years.
Full-size mock-ups of U.S. warships dot the desert in Xinjiang. possibly for target practice, analysts say. China also flexing its flight muscles, flying warplanes near Taiwan in record numbers. The island's leaders warn cross-strait tensions are at 40-year highs. Taiwan racing to modernize its military. New ships, more missiles, billions of dollars in American-made weapons, all to guard against an invasion Taiwan's defense minister says could be possible by 2025. A war that could involve the U.S. and other Democratic allies, Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen told CNN last month in this exclusive interview.
Is Taiwan's strategy to try to be able to defend for a period of time before other countries could assist?
We definitely want to defend ourselves as long as we can. But let me reiterate, it's important that we have the support of our friends.
Taiwan's closest friend, at least geographically, Japan, signaling support for Taipei, a thinly veiled warning for Beijing.
What could happen in Taiwan would likely be an issue for Japan, in which case Japan would need to respond accordingly.
Japan is staging its largest military drills in decades, moving missiles, radar, and troops to its southern islands, about 100 miles from the Taiwanese coast, sending ships to the East China Sea, the site of territorial disputes with China. Japan also facing a threat from North Korean missiles. Pyongyang believed to be ramping up production of uranium for its growing nuclear arsenal. South Korea speeding up its own weapons development, including submarine-launched ballistic missiles. Australia will get nuclear-powered submarines, part of a deal with the U.S. and the UK to counter China's rapid expansion, militarizing man-made islands in the South China Sea. Another military buildup in the Himalayas, the site of deadly border clashes last year between China and India, another nation with nuclear weapons.
And military forces are definitely being built up. Getting into those arms races like that is certainly a difficult path.
A path charted primarily by Presidents Biden and Xi today, and whoever leads tomorrow.
Let's roll through real fast, see where our cold front is hitting. The color contour up to the northwest, displaying the temperatures that have dropped since sunrise. The sun's not going to be able to combat Mother Nature today, as we'll be down to everybody going to be in the 50s by the time we hit the lunch hour. Take a jacket, you're going to need it this evening, and especially if you are out tonight and tomorrow night as we drop down around the freezing point. We'll be back. Wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. COVID-19 cases are on the rise in more than 20 states, but doctors may be getting new tools to help fight the disease. Yesterday, Pfizer asked the FDA to authorize an experimental pill that appears to reduce the severity of the illness in infected patients. On Friday, the CDC will discuss whether all adults should be eligible to receive a coronavirus vaccine booster shot. The jury in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial did not reach a verdict during the first day of deliberations on Tuesday. 18-year-old shot, 2 men dead and wounded a third during the night of protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin last year. The conviction could result in sending Rittenhouse to prison for life. QAnon shaman will learn his fate this morning. Jacob Chansley was among the group that stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Last week, the 33-year-old pleaded guilty to obstructing an official proceeding. Prosecutors have recommended a 51-month sentence, which would be the longest imposed on any Capitol rioter so far. Let's check in with Michael for a final look at your forecast.
Sounds kind of odd, but we're going to go with jackets and umbrellas today. Now, the rain's not going to be anything too extensive, but our temperatures, they're already in the midst of dropping. As it rolls through overnight, bundle up, because we're going to roll temperatures right down around the freezing point. Of course, when those freeze watches and warnings do occur, you can always find the latest on the Skywatch weather app.
Mexican artist Frida Kahlo sold for $34.9 million at Sotheby's on Tuesday night in New York. Kahlo's Diego and I, completed in 1949, features tears in her eyes and her husband, artist Diego Rivera, covering part of her head. The sale more than triples the record for any Kahlo piece and is the highest fee ever paid for a painting by a Latin American artist. The last bust, self-portrait completed by Kahlo before her death in 1954, was purchased for $34.9 million by the Eduardo F. Constantini collection, a renowned collector committed to supporting Latin American art.
Self-portraits amaze me because of the vulnerability that it takes to look at yourself in the mirror and paint yourself the way that you truly do perceive it. Good one to finish on. All right, thank you so much for letting us put the good in your morning. We'll be back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.
The hardest part